If Texas is 5, if Texas is 4 in your power ranking, where does Florida fall in those power rankings? Because I think all three of us have the Dogs in our top 2, top 3, if not number 1 in the SEC in those power rankings. So, Georgia fans, I love you, but you're already the top dog.
Yeah.
You know that. So we're just going to move on, and we're going to address the elephant in the room, which is the Florida Gators.
Yeah, I think that it's hard. Before we went to break, Dylan said he has them at 11 or 12, and that's where probably I have them sitting, because to me, you are putting Tennessee ahead of them. Obviously, we talked about Missouri, Georgia, Texas, probably Texas A&M, LSU definitely. And so they just start sliding to that, to me, 10, 11 maybe is where I'm putting the Gators. I think that a lot of it, and I know a lot of people are high on Graham Mertz, and I think that what we saw last year with Graham Mertz and what we're expecting this season is even more so him being able to have this the comfortability in that offense now, kind of making it more of his own. I think a lot of the questions, though, surround Billy Napier. There were so many issues last year with like in-game decision making. Is that fixed this year? And that's going to be such a massive part on what Florida is able to do. In addition, we've talked a ton about their schedule and how difficult their schedule is. But, I mean, you're in the SEC. Get used to it. It's only going to get harder with now these additions that we're talking about, a Texas team that all of us have in the top 4.
Unless you're Mizzou, who we were just referencing.
Yeah.
Have you looked at Mizzou's schedule, Taylor?
I haven't, actually.
Okay. Murray State, Buffalo, BC. All 3 of those are in Como at home. Vandy at home. At A&M. At UMass. Watch out for the Minutemen, folks. Auburn at home. In Tuscaloosa. Home against Oklahoma. South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas. So I would not say that all schedules are made equal. And so that is where we were reflecting upon the overall team rankings from a year ago and the fact that Mizzou is bringing their quarterback back, just like Florida. But I just recited for you Mizzou's schedule. It's a little bit easier than the likes of what Florida has to go against, not only in the SEC, but right off the jump in the non-conference. You're going against a Miami team who, yes, we don't know what they are because who is Cam Ward? Do we actually know what he will look like in that offense under Mario Cristobal? Respect to that. We don't know what KJ Jefferson's going to look like with our Knights at UCF, but I can tell you this, I would be a lot more nervous about facing the likes of Miami and UCF in my non-conference than the Minutemen of Massachusetts and the Buffalo. I think they're the Buffs. I think they're the Buffs, right? They're like, it's a horned. I think it's the Buffs. I say all that to say, for as much as so many of us on the Superstation maligned Florida from a year ago, and you could make that argument that they got stronger in the trenches. They attacked the transfer portal, especially on defense. They added guys like a local one who, of course, we got to always shout out Grayson Howard down the road and Andrew Jackson, a guy who played meaningful minutes when he had 1 year at South Carolina as a true freshman, but also provides that physicality and that high IQ that you were alluding to, Taylor. We need high IQ guys.
Yep.
And the biggest overarching theme, which is just going back to our conversation about Texas, who are you bringing back? You could make the argument, much like Mizzou, if we're going to include Mizzou in the top 5, top 7 of our power rankings, should you be including Florida because of who they're bringing back? Yeah. Because last I checked, and I've got the numbers pulled up right in front of me, you want to talk about overall offense last year in the SEC? Mizzou averaged 435.1 yards per game. That was good for 5th in the league. The Gators were 6th. 408 yards per game. The offense, as much as, yes, perhaps we've maligned Graham Mertz and people have labeled him as a game manager, the offense was largely not the problem last year.
Yeah. Well, and one of a stat that I read about Graham Mertz, so he had 72.9 completion percentage last season, but he had the lowest average depth of a target in the SEC. So are they going to expand that? Are they going to trust him to start getting the ball downfield a little bit more? Because that's what's going to beat some of these teams when you're talking about Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State. All of these teams, you're going to have to get the ball downfield. Dylan, when you are looking at the Gators and Graham Mertz, do you think they'll be able to open it up with him, or do you think he is more of that game manager type of guy?
He can. It's just, does he have time, and can you make plays for him to, throw the ball downfield? The biggest thing for Florida that not a lot of people I think are talking about is Florida was not one of the worst in the SEC. They were one of the worst teams in the country in turnover margin. They didn't turn the ball over much on offense, but they weren't able to create turnovers on defense. And you look at the schedule, all these games at home, I'm not even talking about November. You have Miami, you have to win that game. You can't lose to UCF. You haven't beaten Kentucky yet if you're Billy Napier. You haven't beaten LSU since Joe Burrow's pick 6. Like, these are things that are writing a lot on Billy Napier that are coming straight from the jump. So if you don't come out firing, and, Billy Napier's made his bed. He wanted to play all these true freshmen last year. He didn't want to dip his toe into the portal like Norvell has at Florida State. So, okay, you want to rely on these freshmen? Okay, now these dudes got to play. And if they don't play, then you're probably going to be out of a job by the time Georgia gets here.
Do you think that you see any Lagway?
Oh, he's definitely playing.
Yeah.
Definitely playing. I think regardless of what happens to Napier, I think he plays in November, regardless of what the schedule is, just because it's more of a recruiting pitch. Like, you have a plan for him, and I think he's going to play just so that, he doesn't leave, hopefully.
I know
Don't go.
So he doesn't leave. You have to give him a little bit of a taste. I know Mark Long of the Associated Press reported on the Frangie Show 2 weeks ago that he doesn't think DJ Lagway is going to have as much on the field time this fall as some people believe. I think there's going to have to be packages. And I also think you're going to have to give him more playing time than you gave Anthony Richardson once upon a time when he was in quote-unquote packages behind Emory Jones and behind Kyle Trask, even if we really want to go all the way back to 2020. I think it's got to be more than that.
Yeah.
But hearing it from Mark, who I trust his sources in Gainesville, what if you're losing 1-score games to UCF, to Miami? It's more competitive. The product on the field looks more professional because, you actually got your special teams out onto the field, and there's enough linemen and there's enough players that need to be on the field at the right time, but you're still losing. Will Florida fans be okay with that, even if it, once again, means they're a middle-of-the-road team in the SEC?
How quickly do you think people, if it's not going well, how quickly Gator fans start saying, let's see Lagway?
Well, and that's what I think the big overarching theme of this conversation as we go through the power rankings. Where do Texas and Oklahoma factor in? Where does Florida factor in? I think that is the overarching theme. What is the standard at Florida? Because I think the plot has been lost. Are you okay with, hey, we're losing 1-score games, but we're competitive? We're competing with the LSUs. We're competing with the Georgias of the world. We're not getting blown out by 3 touchdowns. Is that okay? If you're telling me that's okay because you say, you know what, we got this kid in the pipeline who's going to take us to the next level and we're giving him a little bit of experience here, that's fine if that's your prerogative, but I don't believe that to be where Florida fans believe the Gators program should be.
Do you think, Dylan, as a Gator fan, if things aren't going well, but like Mia said, they are, they're winning some games or they're very close games, do you think Napier kind of holds Lagway in his back pocket, though, to be able to say, well, we've got this kid for next year? Yeah,
I think that's what he's recruiting to all these guys. I mean, it's impressive that he has a losing record, yet he's still been getting all these recruits to come to the school. I think it's more of because he's, telling these guys, we got DJ Lagway coming, and if you come, he got a tight end from Riverside over the weekend, and then he got a big-time receiver from down in Miami, down South Florida last week, and I think he's selling him to, hey, we got DJ Lagway if you stay here for a couple of years, and, he's going to be really well if you come here. I think that's what he's selling. So
you've got the Gators, Dylan, in your power poll, your power ranking of the 16 teams in the SEC. You've got them 10-11.
Yeah, I'll go 11.
Okay.
Do you have South Carolina ahead of them?
No.
Taylor, you got them 10-11?
I think I say 10, yeah.
Okay.
Where do you have them?
I'm going to go right from the top, and you could tell me if I'm wrong. I got Georgia at 1. I got Ole Miss at 2. I got Alabama at 3. LSU 4. Texas 5. Tennessee 6. Mizzou 7. A&M 8. This is where it gets tough.
I know.
Because you tell me, look at Auburn, look at Kentucky. Those are 2 teams that have, at the very least in Auburn, with Hugh Freeze, they're building something. They have been able to recruit since he got back to the SEC. Kentucky, historically, just by nature of how that program is run, the fact that it is not the de facto focal point within that athletic department, because of that, Mark Stoops can have a quote-unquote down year, and it's okay because he's building the recruiting class up over a 3-4 year period. I want to put Florida ahead of Auburn. I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can. And especially because I look at Auburn's schedule and, Alabama A&M, Cal, New Mexico, Arkansas. Love for Arkansas to be good. Forever Sam Pittman fans. Oklahoma, Georgia, Mizzou, Kentucky, Vandy. UL Monroe, though. So, yeah, no. I think I'm putting Auburn ahead of Florida. So
Are you?
I'm putting Auburn ahead of Florida. If for nothing else, based on momentum.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Dylan.
And schedule.
I think that Billy Napier has somehow, some way been able to convince these young men that despite not having the results on the field, because we are seeing the Gators, quote unquote, pay dividends in the recruiting process, they are building something. But until I see something like what Auburn was able to do in the Iron Bowl, that I understand it's a loss, but guess what? That's momentum.
Yeah.
That's saying that we're maybe not as far off as you believe us to be. I don't know if I can buy that stock in Florida, and I would put Auburn ahead of them in my power ranking.
That I have them right after Florida. So if I put Florida at 10, Auburn would be right behind them at 11, and then probably South Carolina after that. I've seen rankings where people have South Carolina ahead of Florida. I can't do that. I'm not putting them there.
They lost Spencer Rattler too.
Yeah.
So I mean, you had a quarterback who some people believe could be an NFL starter at some point in his career, and you were still a middle of the road offense and won 4 games last year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people look at, because his arm is incredible. And so that's what a lot of people are wondering, because when I was doing kind of a lot of the draft talk, there were some people that were really high on Spencer Rattler because of his arm strength. And so you lose that. And to me, immediately your offense takes a massive hit just because you're not guaranteed to have the guy that can stretch the field like that, the way that Rattler could.
Yeah, the only teams that I'm right now confident Florida is better than are South Carolina, Mississippi State,
Vandy,
Arkansas. Although, hey, listen, never count out Sam Pittman, Vandy, and maybe Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah.